We walked a lot of the time, and I lived down by Garfield Park, so it was quite a walk. And I walked most of the time. Sometimes I caught a ride, but most of the times I walked back and forth from school. Of course, that's the building that's still there. And, well, you know, it had an auditorium, and we had a gym, a little gym. It was kind of, it wasn't too good. And then, of course, it had the classrooms, but, and I was quite involved with home ec, and so the home ec gals helped with fixing the lunches every day, so we helped in the kitchen and helped fix the lunches and stuff. So we, you know, and of course, like I say, I took home ec, and it was a couple hours long, and so I did a lot with that. And then I was the president of the Future Homemakers of America, the state president. So I did quite a little bit with that, and I don't know what you'd say a day was like. We just went from class to class, and you know, I said that was my favorite class, and I don't remember. Well, we had, you know, I had other classes and science and math and things, and you know, I don't remember that I thought too much about any of the other classes. Like I say, I was very involved with the home economics. And oh, I loved Chuck Logan. You know, he was just like a dad to all of us. And I worked in the office. I had my period that I didn't have a class, I worked in the office for Chuck, and he was such a character. He would scoot around in his class, and then he could shock me when he touched me. And I always wondered, you know, I thought, how does he know? He always knew what we were doing outside of class and everything, and I thought, how does he always know that? But he seemed like he always kept track of everything. He'd say, now, one time I know I went up to Wamego, I think, to watch a basketball game or something, and he said, now, did your folks know you went to Wamego? Of course, I said, yes. I don't think they knew. But I always thought, how does he know what all I'm doing whenever I'm out? But he was just, oh, he was really a sweetheart. He was very nice. He was a good old guy. Yeah. No, I didn't know anything about him. Now, my mom had gone to Seaman, you know, when it first opened, and she knew him, of course, but I didn't really know anything about Fred Seaman. Yes, and you know, and everybody said I was the first homecoming queen, which wasn't true, because they did have a homecoming the year before, and it was Elna Bowman. She was a Renner. She was married to Dean Renner. But I got my annuals out and looked at them, and all it said in that year that Elna, it didn't mention her name, it didn't say anything about it, it just said homecoming was observed at the Highland Park football game. Didn't give her name, didn't say anything about her. And then the year that I was homecoming queen, I had a full-page picture and everything. They'd made a big to-do over it that year. So, well, they were chosen by the football team at that time. The whole school didn't vote on it. It was just the football team chose the homecoming queen. No, I can't remember anything special. We did have think we did have a dance. I can remember we took dance lessons. Pollum Pearl Dance Studio, and my uncle was in the service at the time, and I would write letters back and forth to him, and I told him about that we were taking dance classes before, and he said, well, what is the matter with those guys? Can't they follow anything but a furrow? But yeah, we had dance classes before we had our prom. Oh yeah, we had really good football teams. I think they were undefeated that year. Well, I don't know, Dan Emmerich was the football coach, and I think he was a good coach, and like I say, my husband was a couple years older than I, and his folks moved to Manhattan, and Dan, he didn't want Joe to leave because Joe was a real good football player, so he took him in, and he lived with them his last 2 years at high school. He lived with Dan and his wife Lois. No, they didn't do much with girl sports back then. We didn't really have much in the way of sports. Yeah, Highland Park, I think, seemed like was our big rival back then. We had a student section, and I think the kids participated pretty well. They were pretty involved. Oh gosh, what did we do? Went to the movies most of the time. I think that was about all we did. And we did walk a lot. We'd just take off in nice weather and hike, go walk a long ways and stuff. But, I don't know what we did for. One summer I worked at the creamery, the Shawnee Creamery down there in North Topeka, and serving ice cream, and I ate lots of ice cream that summer. I loved ice cream. My husband used to always tell Chris Henriksen that owned it. Well, Chris Henriksen just lived a few doors from our house, so I was only 14 years old. I think I was supposed to babysit for them that summer. Well, they didn't have anybody to work down at the creamery, so my girlfriend and I worked down there. And here we were, 14 years old, and we would close the creamery up at night, put the money in a paper sack, walk all the way through North Topeka to Garfield Park, and then we'd drop the money off at their house because they just lived a few doors from us. So. But I said, I don't think you could do that nowadays. Why? And we didn't have any blinds on the windows at the creamery, and everybody could just see us. We'd lock the door, and then we'd take the money out of the cash register and put it in a paper sack, and then just take off and walk all the way through North Topeka and take the money to their house. I said, I don't think you could do that nowadays. Somebody'd hit you in the head or something. Yeah. I don't know, but we felt pretty safe walking around then. Yeah, they made food right there, and the home ec girls helped, and then they served. I think we paid like 26 cents or something like that for our lunch. But you had a pretty good lunch. No, we didn't have hardly any. Now there were the Hayeses that lived over here on Topeka Boulevard. They were a pretty big family, and I think one of the Hayes girls was a year behind me in school. And then we had one, I can't think what his name was, we had one black boy that was out at BIS, but I think they let him go to school, and he was a really good athlete, so he was, can't think what his name was. But he was very good, and he went to Seaman for a couple of years. You know, I don't think there was too much discrimination. You know, there were so few of them. Well, I had another, I think Darlene Patterson was in my class. And I don't think that they really, you know, I don't think that we treated them any differently. I think that we got along real well, and I don't think there was any troubles at all. I'm thinking it was like 40-some, but I've got my yearbook right over there. We could count them, but I'm not sure how many. I remember Dean Melvin, Clayton Cochran, and I think it was Dale Logan. But anyway, they were always getting in trouble in class, and then they'd get to laughing about something, and they couldn't quit laughing, and then they'd send them to the principal. And I remember Chuck Logan telling them one time, they walked in, you know, real serious, and he said, "If I pointed my finger at you, you'd laugh." Oh, they just broke out into laughing. They couldn't stop laughing. But they were kind of ornery, but they were, like I say, you know, we got along real well, and I always enjoyed my time at Seaman. Oh yeah, it's really something now. Of course, I've gone up there to some of the games and stuff like that, and to the basketball games, so I've been inside it. Yeah, it's quite different. No, we didn't have baseball. They had basketball and football. I think that was, we had some track. Didn't have a big track team, but they did have track. The auditorium was pretty small in there. That wasn't too fancy. And we didn't even have some classes, I think, in the auditorium. Now I don't know how many hours we went to school. I don't remember. Well, I did, and in fact, I got a scholarship to Manhattan, to K-State. And so I did start K-State and went up there a while, and then Joe, the guy I married, came back from the service, and so I didn't want to be in Manhattan, and he was here in Topeka, so I came back, and I went to Washburn a while then after I came back from Manhattan. But I did get a scholarship to K-State, and so I went there a while, and then came back and went to Washburn a while, but I didn't graduate. But I think that Goodyear was there. I'm not sure when, you know, Goodyear, my husband was in the insurance business, and you know, a lot of his business came from Goodyear people. You know, there was a lot of people in this area that worked at Goodyear, and you know, Goodyear helped the economy a lot in North Topeka, because you know, people bought houses and cars and insured them and one thing and another. So Goodyear was quite important to this area. Oh yeah, yeah, it's grown a lot.
When you were going, did you go from elementary school to high school, or was there a middle school in between?
Well, I started to Curtis Junior High, because I lived in North Topeka, and I started to Curtis Junior High, and then I came out and went to Seaman. But
was it a pretty big step from going to junior high to high school?
I didn't think so. Didn't seem to be.
Would you say the rate? Because now it's pretty expected for people to graduate high school.
Oh yeah.
Was it, when you went to high school, were there a lot of people that didn't graduate?
A lot of people didn't graduate. And especially during the 4 years, it seemed like a lot of the kids, the boys, dropped out of school and joined the service. And so, yeah, I don't remember, you know, the difference from starting to finish, but a lot of the kids didn't finish high school. And we had a Mrs. Skinner that was an English teacher over there, and she failed so many boys they couldn't they couldn't pass her junior English class, and a lot of them just quit school. You know, she wasn't really. She was good for the good students, but not too good for the poor students.
Yeah.
She was a good teacher, but she didn't have much sympathy or empathy or something for the poor students, and a lot of them just quit school because they couldn't pass junior English.
Did you guys have like college classes in high school?
I don't think so. I don't remember having any.
Do you remember any teachers that were just your favorite and like you just still love, like you like?
Well, Marvel Cox, because she was the home ec teacher, and I spent a lot of time with her. And she's the one that stands out in my mind. Of course, I loved Dan Emmerich. He was great, and I'm not sure that he was much of a teacher, but we liked him. Of course, we'd get him talking football or something in class. I'm not sure we learned too much from him, but we all liked him. And he would usually stand on his head and do things like that for you. And his wife was secretary over there for a while. She was such a really, really nice person.
Where did they put the football games at?
Well, they were right there behind the school. Trying to think where they were, because it was right behind the school. It must be, I suppose the Seaman Church wasn't there then. They had the old Seaman Church, but, they've added on to it and everything. But the football field was right behind the school.
So when the flood in '51 happened, were you at K-State then, or had you moved back here?
No, I was down at Camp Wood that summer. I'd already gotten married, and we were down at Camp Wood, and my husband was the director of the camp down there. So we were wondering we couldn't figure out what was going on back in Topeka, because we were trying, my dad was the fireman and out here, and we would try to call the fire station and nobody would answer, and we said, well, somebody's got to be there, that's the fire station. Well, it had flooded, and they had to move up on the hill, move the fire trucks and everything up on the hill. So the water got in there, fairly deep. I mean, it was bad. And we were amazed when we finally got to come back to Topeka, that of all the devastation. And my grandmother lived down on North Logan, and they had put stuff in they'd taken all the furniture and put it in the second story, thinking it would be safe there. And the floodwater got clear up into the second story of her house.